I will cover the Belgian Grand Prix 2023 Sprint Shootout session. This session is not related to the actual Sunday race. However, it does determine the starting grid for the sprint later in the day. So I'm going to talk about three things over here. Why Tsunoda could actually beat Valtteri Bottas, and why Yuki Tsunoda couldn't beat George Russell in the Sprint Q1, and how did the gap between Piastri and Max Verstappen was actually produced, even though it was the slightest margin between those two drivers. Okay, so first of all, let's look at the air temperature and track temperature of the sprint shootout session. As you may know that throughout the session, not throughout the session, but until the first half of Q2, sprint Q2, we had an intermediate tire condition. It was so it used to be a intermediate wet condition. So the track temperature was low and air temperature was low as well, and the tire didn't have much grips on it. And towards the end of the session, the weather was actually changing, becoming better, and everyone was actually moving on to a soft tire. As you can see from this plot, everyone that proceeded in Sprint Shootout Q3, they wore actually the soft tire. However, in Q2 and Q1, no one actually could run on a dry tire, so all the drivers needed to pick up the intermediate tire. Here you can see Stroll. He has actually changed his tire to a medium tire at the end of the Q2 session. However, he will actually spin out at the exit of corner 7, and he crashed into the wall, and he actually ended the Q2. Okay, so let's move on to the fastest lap comparison between Yuki Tsunoda and Valtteri Bottas. Yuki Tsunoda actually beat Valtteri Bottas in Sprint Shootout Q1 with a slight margin. So let's look at why Tsunoda could beat Bottas. So first, what I always like to see is the speed plot. It looks like this is where Raidillon and Eau Rouge is. It looks like Valtteri Bottas didn't really make a good corner entry around Raidillon and Eau Rouge. Indeed, he actually braked in the middle of the corner, which is the reason why he lost some time over here. And throughout the corner, Yuki looks a little bit better in braking. How I can tell is he maintains speed slightly later in the corner when compared to Valtteri Bottas, like here, 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 and here. Usually, in the world of motorsports, we would say slow entry and fast out, or fast entry, slow out. So the exit speed and entry speed, it is actually in a relationship of trade-offs. So if the drivers would prefer the fast entry, then it must be a slow entry. Or if the drivers actually prefer the slower entry, and there's much more chance to get a faster exit. However, Yuki actually matches to the Valtteri's speed plot, even though, well, Yuki actually had a little bit worse corner exit. However, it doesn't cost much because he made so much in the corner entry. Let's look at the brake plot. He braked later in the entry of the corner when compared to Valtteri Bottas. That means he could lift on the coast a little bit longer towards the apex of the corner. And when looking at the throttle, he actually didn't lift, or he lifted later than Valtteri did, which means he could put more speed on his car towards the apex of the corner, and he could get the faster entry, even though he matched the speed to Valtteri Bottas at the corner exit. Probably a better braking skill was what made Yuki to beat Valtteri Bottas. However, I would say this year, Valtteri braking on Radeon or arose was probably the biggest factor for Yuki to beat Valtteri Bottas. Yeah, this is probably because Yuki had a little bit more higher downforce setting on his car, as we saw in the actual qualifying session in the previous video. And this could actually explain why Yuki could get a better brakings, because if you get higher downforce, then there's a much more higher chance that a driver can actually dive into deeper in the corner and yet stop the car in the proper position, because it has a higher downforce and higher grip. And after they stop the car, rotate the car properly, and then proceed to the exit. This is the throttle plot on the track. Obviously, you can see that Valtteri lifted so much, and Yuki didn't as much as Valtteri did. And since Valtteri actually lifted at Radeon, it probably affected the acceleration and the top speed on the Camel Straight, because Camel Straight is such a long straight, and any lift or any loss in the speed at Radeon or before Camel Straight could cost so much later in the straight, because at this time DRS was not enabled, and two, the straight was simply long. So there's a lot more track length a driver can lose the time compared to the driver ahead. And we don't really see much differences between the gear pickups between these two drivers. The brake plot, yeah, Valtteri braked right before the entry of the Radeon or arose corner. So yeah, that's what I would guess made Yuki beat Valtteri Bottas. Okay, so let's move on to the Yuki Tsunoda against George Russell. George actually proceeded to Sprint Shootout Q2, so this was the plot from the fastest lap of George Russell in Sprint Shootout Q1, and the obvious difference we can see is over here. George and Yuki pretty much matched the speed between these drivers. However, sometimes Yuki has a slower speed around the corner here and here. And what's most prominent is the liftoff at Radion, while George Russell didn't. Even though the figure legend says that both of the plots are Tsunoda, the what do they call the deeper blue one shows the plot of Yuki, and the turquoise color shows the plot of George Russell, just to make sure. So the reason why probably Yuki couldn't beat George Russell and proceed to Q2 was this tiny lift at Radion / Eau Rouge and the cornering speed at these corners. This was probably Puhan, and this was probably at the S-shaped corner just right before the Blanchimont. So AlphaTauri's car probably didn't have much downforce when compared to Mercedes cars. Well, this is obvious because Mercedes car is actually wanting the constructors title, and they are, competing for the constructors title, while AlphaTauri is just a second team for Red Bull, and they don't have much power in car development, much skills or techniques or money or technologies in development of the car. So we could conclude that Mercedes car is a lot more balanced when compared to AlphaTauri's car. So there's no liftoff at Radion, while Yuki did. And there's no speed loss around Radion, which made a huge gap for here in the Kemmel Straight for George Russell. And if you remember, actually Yuki drove through Radion towards like a half the Kemmel Straight with a 7th gear. Yet George actually drove on 8th gear around Radion, Eau Rouge, and Kemmel Straight. So we should probably say George had a higher downforce, while smaller drag around the car, so he could also get a faster top speed. Yep, no brake around Radion. So to conclude, before we move on to the next section, Yuki actually had a better car, or car with the higher downforce than Valtteri Bottas, and he had a better brake skills in braking. So that's the reason why Yuki could beat Valtteri Bottas in Q1. However, this Mercedes car is such strong, they are really balanced well between the drag and downforce. So George had good top speed while not killing the cornering speed. That's the reason why Yuki couldn't beat George Russell and proceed to Q2 in the shootout session. Okay, so let's look at the spectacular battles between Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen. So their margin was really, really tiny at the end of the session. We couldn't even see the time differences between these drivers in the first plot, if you want to see it. It's this one. It's almost nothing for these two drivers. And as you may see, that McLaren, the orange line for Piastri and blue line for Max Verstappen, Piastri actually had a higher cornering speed around here, and then around here, and around here. And he, of course, didn't lift at all around Radion, and not at that stop now at the Blanchimont, another high downforce corner. And he actually sometimes show better brakings into the corner. And his throttle actually matched to Max Verstappen at the exit of the corner. And here, Piastri actually won, or had clearly better corner exit than Max Verstappen. This rookie driver is actually surprising for me. I have never expected him doing this much good because, in the earlier season, McLaren was most likely a tail ender. They used to drive around 19 or 18 or 17 or even 20 P20. So we didn't really see Oscar Piastri was a good driver. However, these days he's so much becoming good, and he could possibly beat Lando Norris or be a future drivers champion, I would say. Anyway, well, let's see why Oscar Piastri didn't beat Max Verstappen. First thing to remember is that Spa-Francorchamps is a high-speed circuit, and there are a lot more straights and high cornering speed corners around Spa-Francorchamps. This is where the Tunnel Straight is, and this is where the Blanchimont towards the Bastop chicane is. As you can see, this max car for both of the flat out section, Max Verstappen actually had higher top speed. You of course know that McLaren uses the Mercedes power unit, and Red Bull uses the Red Bull powertrain power unit, aka Honda power unit, which is I'm really proud of because I'm Japanese. So probably the difference in the power unit made this slight change along the long corner, the long straight and flatted section, which eventually compensated the time loss around the corner for Max Verstappen, and he even won the battle. Throttle plot doesn't show a much difference between these drivers. However, actually here, Piastri braked a little bit gentle when compared to Max Verstappen, and he didn't pick up throttle through this section, while Oscar Piastri picked up some more throttle over this section. So we could say probably McLaren has more higher cornering speed, while Red Bull has higher top speed. Speed plot is really hard to visualize a slight change between the drivers, so I will skip it for now. However, here, Max actually got a better acceleration and had slightly more speed towards the corner, I would say. It looks like the gear shift doesn't look really different for these two drivers. and the brake doesn't really look changed. Even though, however, he braked here towards the entry of the Buhong corner, which is another evidence for McLaren having a higher downforce car. And here as well, Max braked here, while Piastri didn't, which means probably McLaren had a better car, higher downforce car around this circuit. Okay, so to sum it up, Yuki could beat Valtteri Bottas for his better braking skills and for his higher downforce car setting while not killing the top speed against Bottas. The reason why Yuki couldn't beat George Russell in the Q3 session was Mercedes car has a better balance between downforce and top speed. And the reason why Piastri couldn't beat Max Verstappen was because even though McLaren had a higher corner speed, thus higher downforce car, Honda engine or Red Bull car compensated that time loss around the corner. They made that time around the flat-out section, especially for the Camel Straight and the Blanchimont section. So even though their time gap was tiny, the slightest margin, the top speed and low drag were balanced between the downforce and the drag for Red Bull. Made Max Verstappen beat Oscar Piastri at this time. Well, thanks for watching. All the codes and all the visualizations and the plots are in the description. The link for those things are in the description. And please check the video from the previous Grand Prix. I've got the analysis video for Belgian Grand Prix actual qualifying for the Sunday race. And I'm going to upload a lot more videos in the future, so please keep updated and like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks.